Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Billy Nash. Welcome to episode 8 of my podcast, Luxury Real Estate with Billy Nash. So I'm super pumped for today's episode. I have somebody that's on that I invited to be on the show, and I'm very flattered that she said yes. And it's Katie Lance. So for the listeners that are out there that are familiar with Katie, you may know she's nationally recognized as a authority in real estate social media. Katie has a tremendous a track record in the industry. She's recognized as one of the best consultants and social media experts throughout the country. And I want to welcome Katie to our episode 8. Thank you for being here, Katie.
Thank you, Billy. I'm so excited to be here today.
Awesome. We're gonna dig. We're gonna dig right in. So, Katie, I've been following you for years. You know that I got my real estate license about 6.5 years ago. And of course, I always wanted to see who were the leaders in the industry, because I always say knowledge is power. And one of the things that I picked up on really quick was a woman by the name of Katie Lance. And she was one to be reckoned with. And also you had an amazing career in helping build Inman, which is super, super impressive. And people that are listening know Inman is one of the best real estate publications in the country. And Katie played a major role in marketing and building that brand before she went off on her own to build her consulting business, her social media practice, which now is thriving to help agents all over the country. So, Katie, with that, can you tell me a little bit about your background and your time at Inman and just kind of the industry then and what's evolved over the last 15-20 years?
Yeah, absolutely. It has definitely evolved for sure. I've always been kind of in the world of marketing and sales, and I got my start in the real estate industry probably, I would say 2005-ish. I was hired to work at a local real estate company in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live. I'm not a realtor, but I was hired as a marketing director. And that really, I kind of start my story there because that really got my feet wet, so to speak, working with agents. I really fell in love with the industry. I love the entrepreneurial spirit of a real estate agent. And after working there for a few years, I then went on to work for Inman for a number of years. So I started my time at Inman probably right around 2009 or so, and was there for a number of years. And I'm very grateful. Got to work with some amazing folks over there. And Inman at the time was already an amazing brand, and it was so fun to come into Inman at a time when social media for real estate was really starting to explode. The Facebook was just kind of exploding in a big way, and Instagram was right behind it. And the industry was figuring out how to incorporate, iPhones, and the iPad came out right around that time. And so it was a really fascinating time to be a part of that, and had the good fortune of really helping Inman grow, especially with their social media presence. And I was really honored to help build their ambassador program, ended up speaking at a lot of their events. And yeah, it definitely really, I think, set the stage for what I'm doing now, and really set a lot of the groundwork for what I'm doing now. And last year, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary in business.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Really exciting. I get to work side by side with my husband, Paul. He quit his corporate job about 6 or 7 years ago, and we have a small virtual team. And so now we are able to help really thousands of agents. Our passion is really helping agents and brokers get smarter about social media. We really feel like it's not the end all and be all. It's not the silver bullet, but when done right, it can make a big difference in your business. So it's been quite a journey. And like I said, I'm excited to be here and talk about some of that with you today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so our listeners, are primarily, realtors around the country that are either in the luxury real estate business or looking to grow into the luxury real estate business. And I think social media, I know, plays a huge role in all of our business models. So to have you on is definitely an awesome thing. So if you were giving some advice to we'll have it two-pronged question. So, you're a realtor that's doing a bunch of deals and you want to grow your social media presence, and you don't really have, maybe an idea of how to launch it. What are some of the things that you think you could tell that agent, coming out of the box? They're building their brand, like I did. They laughed at me because they said I came in like a wrecking ball, because I had no idea what I was doing. But that song was actually the top song, and they said, "Here comes Nash. He's like a wrecking ball." So I just really focused on, I really focused on my brand, and and followed you on social media and got a lot of tips and things. But what would you tell that agent that's listening today, or that entrepreneur that's building a company, or whatever it may be? What would be some of the first critical steps to kind of evaluate the next steps to grow your business?
I think there's a couple things. I think the first thing is it's really important to show up. It's really easy, especially as a busy realtor, and if you become more successful, it's really easy to kind of think that you need to pass off your social media to someone else or hire someone else to do it all for you. And there's certainly nothing wrong with having an assistant or having a little bit of help or having, maybe a video editor. But at the end of the day, social media is social, and real estate's a relationship business. So as important as content is, which is kind of the second answer to your question here, but the first part is really, you've got to show up. And it doesn't have to, be hours a day, but you should be spending 10 or 15 minutes a day intentionally engaging with other people. It's less about you and more about others. So what that looks like for me, I do it every morning. I call it Focus 5. I spend five or 10 minutes. I scroll through my feed and I look for 5 or 10 posts that I can intentionally engage with. I don't just like a bunch of things, but take a few minutes to like, comment, leave meaningful comments, respond, ask questions. And that tiny little action over the course of time, it's huge. It's one of the ways we build relationships, right? It's just like in real life when you meet someone for the first time and you don't become best friends right away. These small actions over the course of time. And then the second part of that is content, right? Another mistake I see a lot of agents making is they are like paying for someone else to do their content, or they're like outsourcing it, or they're posting kind of the same generic stuff that every other person is posting. So one way to stand out from that, whether you're newer to real estate or you've been doing this for a long time, is to start putting together a content strategy where you're putting out original content, usually video content. It's one of the easiest things to do. Maybe not easy to get on camera, but easiest because we've all got, a phone and start to think about putting out content on a consistent basis. I would say at least once a week, if not more, but at least once a week, get yourself on camera and start putting out content, not just about listings or open houses, but providing value, questions you get asked all the time, helpful tips, information about your community. And those two things, the relationship building and the content, they really go hand in hand. It's a great way to keep in touch with people. And it's also a great way to attract people who will start watching your content and go, I like that guy, or I like what she has to say. Or maybe they won't. And that's okay. You don't have to be everyone's cup of tea either. So that's okay.
It's interesting you said that. I had a deal that I did a couple of years ago that was north of $10 million. And this particular client, they're actually become good friends. And it was interesting because they knew every realtor on the street, but they called me unsolicited. And one of the reasons why they did that is that the wife was following me on Instagram. And she was watching the things that I was doing and the content that I was putting out. So when I said to them, listen, I'd love to have the opportunity. I know you've been ingrained in this community for 35, 40 years. I've only been down here for 6 or 7 years. Every realtor in town. If you don't pick me, that's fine. It might take you a couple weeks. And it was an hour after I left their house and they called and said, you're hired. We don't have to meet anybody else. And I asked them after the fact of what got that, what got you, first they liked the fact that I spent a lot more time talking about the house than myself. Right. And really, exploring everything about the house. But then later, she said, I love following you on social media. So they're seeing the content, they're seeing the brand, they're seeing the grind, right? And I think people appreciate that, when you're working hard and they see it. So I always say it's not about, having an ego, having social media. It's because you're proud of what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
And it's gaining the trust of the community. So I'm a big believer, in that process. So, I definitely agree with you. So what would be?
It's interesting. I was just going to say one thing real quick about that. I was just going to say that you bring up a good point that a lot of people never like or interact or engage with our content, but they're watching.
Exactly.
And I have talked to so many realtors who have said, you know, someone inside of our academy who just reached out to me recently. She said, my last 15 deals came from social media. And she said, most of them did not engage with my content, but they were watching. They've been watching my videos for 6 months or a year or whatever. So to your point, I think that's a huge part of it.
And sometimes I think too, and you can maybe educate me on this, it's hard to really monetize, you know, when you're on social, be like, okay, I got that from this and I got this from that. to me, it's, you know, it's the presence that you're creating in the community, either whether it's just in local or for me, I think it's national, right? But I think it's the presence that you're creating. So sometimes it's hard to just kind of gauge and check a box and go, okay, well, this came from that. It's hard. It's almost like you know, it's like I don't know if it's like the aura of social media. You know what I mean? I don't know the right word for it, but it's like, it's a presence that you're creating over time, that you're definitely monetizing it, but sometimes it's hard to check all those monetization boxes. Do you have any tools to kind of, what do you tell agents that are trying to figure out, like, okay, cool, I've been doing this for 2 years, but what I get out of it? They might not know, but it's you know, it could be subliminal. You know, what do you tell agents? Like, how do they gauge their you know, what's happening in their social media presence? Like, what do you tell agents?
I mean, I think there's a couple of things you could track. You could always track your followers and how those are increasing. I do think that that's not always necessarily the best metric. It is a metric that you could certainly track. You know, if you're putting in a concerted effort and you're just being really inconsistent, and then you say, okay, for the next 6 months, I'm going to post 3 times a week. I'm going to engage 15 minutes a day, and you really kind of make a shift, then I think it definitely makes sense to say, okay, I'm at 1,000 followers on Instagram. Let's see what happens in the next 6 months, and to track that, because even though followers aren't the end all and be all, other things are going to happen with that, right? You're going to increase your engagement. I'm sure some of those are going to turn into appointments and things like that. So that's probably one of the easiest things to track is either followers or views. You know, especially if you're doing a lot of video content, a lot of folks that we work with will track to see what type of content works better on Instagram versus Facebook versus TikTok, like kind of tracking what that looks like. I think the other part of it is, and this is, it probably seems like a no-brainer, but just asking every new client that comes to you, asking, you know, hey, where did you first hear about me? Or how did we first get introduced? And then putting it on a spreadsheet. I know that seems like, of course we would do that, but I can't tell you how many people I know don't do that. And there's one guy in our academy I talk to all the time about this, and he's got like a Google document. He just literally lists everyone's name, and if it's a friend or family member or referral, or if they say, oh, I see you everywhere, he tries to dig in a little bit and be like, okay, that's flattering, but like, is that Facebook, or like, did you see my sign or whatever? And so just trying to like make sure you're asking that question in a conversational way. Obviously, we don't want to, we're not like interrogating our clients or anything, but you know, and a lot of times it is multiple things. It's, well, gosh, I Googled you and I came across your website, and then I went to your Facebook page, and then I was talking to my friend who knew you. Like, a lot of times it's multiple things. But we shouldn't discount those either.
What would you say the biggest mistake that you see realtors make with social media?
I think the biggest mistake is a lot of times it's all about them, right? And so they're posting a lot of promotional content. It's just listed, just sold, open houses, just, which is important. And I don't think you should not post that, because that shows your success. That shows that that you are good at what you do. But if that's all that you're posting, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of traction, right? So having a balance between not just promotional content, but also making sure you're posting educational, informative content, maybe from time to time, things that are funny or inspirational. And I think the way that can work really well is showcasing your own personality. Doing things, especially Instagram stories is great for this. That's a way to kind of take people behind the scenes, so to speak, and show your humanity. Show that you're not just, this real estate agent. You wear 10 different hats, and what does that look like? So it's interesting. It's interesting you say that
when I travel, I like to put some of those things up on Instagram, and it's funny because we'll run into people and they're like, wow, how was that restaurant in Puglia?
Yeah.
I'm like, you watched that? Like, oh yeah, we watched it. I'm like, no shit, that's awesome. Was that, that Coliseum in Lecce was that like, I didn't see any crowds. And I'm like, so I like the personality side of social media as well. Cause it's not all about, of course we like to put up trophy properties that we've sold because it's fun, right? We're proud of them. But it's interesting, to put your, because I always say that real estate in a way is a talent show. Right. People want to work with people they like. People want to work with people they want to do business with. Right. If you're a jerk, people don't want to work with you. Right. So people want to like you. Then when you want to be a likable person, and in a way, it's almost social media is a way to break the ice to the community. So people that are seeing you say, hey, you know what? This is a good guy. This is a good girl. A good gal. And this, so I think it's a tremendous tool. What do you see changing in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, I'm seeing a lot about this, those chat bots and all this. That's like the new trend. And I can't believe it. I just started following some of these, what's going on. I mean, Microsoft today is going to invest over $1 billion in that. There's I forget what it's called, but I mean, it's incredibly, I mean, I looked at some of the examples. They're writing listing presentations and they're pretty damn good. I mean, I read a few of them and I was like, this is pretty good, so, and you put in some keywords, you put in luxury, sophistication, and blah, blah, and all of a sudden, boom. I mean, this unbelievable listing description came out and I was like, wow. So if you go on YouTube, you could follow some of these, what I'm talking about. What do you think about that? And where do you see the future of social media headed, in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, AI is a huge conversation right now. People are worried they might get replaced by robots or AI, or what's going to happen to marketing people, and what's going to happen to realtors. I think things change. As much as we like to say, as much as we get comfortable in our own space of things staying the same, things change. First it was social media, and for a lot of folks it was video, and maybe it's TikTok, and now it's AI. I think with AI, it's certainly something to pay attention to. It is pretty incredible. I think until you actually try it yourself, it's easy to be really skeptical. But trying something like ChatGPT,
that's what I'm talking about.
It's pretty incredible. I've been playing around. I love using Canva for a lot of graphics. Canva has an AI feature now, and so where I think there's an opportunity for agents and brokers who maybe struggle with the writing side of things, listing presentations, flyers, postcards. Real estate agents are always writing, marketing materials, and a lot of agents are great at real estate, maybe not always great at the written part of it. I think that's a huge opportunity to be able to go in there and say, write me a 500-word, blog post or a property flyer about this property. Here are some details. Do I think it's going to replace an agent from actually making sure they go in and tweak it a little bit? No, I still think, because I've been using it a lot as well, but I still think you have to be able to go in and go, you know what, that part doesn't really sound like me. Let me kind of adjust that a little bit and putting in your own secret sauce. I think that's, that part I don't think will ever be replaced, but it is a pretty amazing tool. I also think, video will continue to be even more important, especially as we see sort of the AI side of things with writing and graphics. I mean, unless at one point you can clone yourself, which who knows? I mean, anything's possible, right? But there's still nothing like, me showing up. And look, we do a lot of stuff that's professionally video edited. I have a great editor on our team, but I also know that there's just power in just like the quick video on my phone that is real, that's authentic, that's me in the backyard. I think we are kind of craving that as well. So I think there's a big opportunity for AI, but I also continue to think that there's an opportunity to be real, as you said, Billy, to show up, to show your humanity. I love how you said it kind of breaks the ice. I love that. And also share helpful information, helpful tips. I think the short form vertical video, that's a huge trend right now with TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But I do think there's still an opportunity for longer form, like your podcast. I have a podcast. I think there's still an opportunity for people who like longer form content. So lots of opportunities in the next 2 years, for sure. And
I know probably some of the listeners are saying, I heard Billy at Luxury Portfolio last year on the stage say AI meant all in. And that's what I am. AI to me is I'm all in all different aspects of the business.
Yeah, it's a huge time saver. I just used it recently. I recorded a bunch of videos and I was like, hey, write a YouTube description for this video about these topics, right?
Mhm.
And so what would have taken me maybe 30 minutes, it was done in a matter of seconds. And then I can go in and go, well, let me adjust this a little bit, and then it's done, right? So it's a huge time saver.
Well, one of the things, and also, I always say, and I said this in a previous podcast, that no matter what happens with AI, right, at the end of the day, we are still the deal makers. And no one's going to open up a laptop and pull it out and say, I'm going to leave the room and they're going to negotiate for you while I go outside and sit by the pool. That's not what happens, right. So we are still
especially when you're talking about the luxury market.
Correct.
Especially in that market.
We are the core to make those things happen. So in AI, maybe some peripheral things to help you with your business, but at the end of the day, don't lose focus on who really makes it happen. Who don't have deal amnesia.
Exactly.
Deal amnesia. So I know that you, what kind of questions do you get from realtors that hire you to be a consultant to help them with their business? What are like you work with thousands of agents. So what is the resounding? Is it just, I'm lost, I have no idea what to do? Like, what is the, do you know, like what kind of questions do you get from resounding, repeated, repetitive thing that you hear all the time, right? What would that be? If you're listening, if someone's listening right now, like what would, you might be able to, they're probably thinking it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of commonly asked questions. I'm often asked things like, where to start, or where should I spend my time? Where to start is a common question. You, in one hand, you might imagine, gosh, everyone's on social media. Look, there's agents watching this right now who are maybe 10 years ago set up a Facebook account, but there's a lot of folks who feel like they're behind the 8 ball and they don't know where to start, or they're not sure where to spend their time, and they're overwhelmed because there's, 12 different platforms or whatever there is. And now we're talking about AI, and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to do that too. So I
have that problem with there's so many. No, seriously, because there's so many platforms. Like my son thinks, he's like, Dad, why are you not on TikTok? You know,
right.
But I'm not. I mean, so I just focus on a couple of social media platforms. I mean, I fall right in. I'm one of those candidates. Like I'm like overwhelmed.
Yeah. So one of the pieces of advice I always tell people is look. As much as I love social media, I mean, I'm in the business of social media. I think it's important to remember social media is rented ground. We don't own it, right? So I always like to kind of take a step back and say, instead of thinking about, should I be on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever, 25 different platforms, I think it's important to take a step back and think about, is there a content strategy that we could create that can go with us wherever we go, right? So taking a step back and saying, okay, look, regardless of platform, I want to be able to have content out there that tells people who I am, that shares informative, information where people can see that I'm a good resource.
Breaking the ice.
Exactly, breaking the ice. And that content library works for you, especially if you're in it for the long haul, right? If you are in it for, as long as you're, committed to more than just a video or two, if you can take a step back and go, okay, I'm going to, maybe you publish one new piece of content once a week, one video, and that video might go up on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or maybe a few different platforms. What happens then is you own that content no matter what, right? So if TikTok goes down tomorrow, you get locked out of your Instagram account, it's all good because it's not yours to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of taking a step back, and like you're doing your podcast, like you own your content no matter what. You can take this podcast, you could repurpose it. You could pull out little clips. You could turn it into graphics. You can put it on YouTube, Facebook. Like there's 25 different things you could do with one piece of content. Mm. And that's sort of the beauty of content, as you know. And also content works for you 24/7. As a realtor, you shouldn't be working 24/7. And one of the ways to work while you go on vacation, while you have time with your family, while you're with your clients, is to have that sort of content working for you in the background. So that's kind of something I always preach. I always think it's important. I also think it's important to build your email database. That database, again, goes with you wherever you go. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing for someone to, follow you on Instagram. It's a whole other thing for someone to say, yes, send me more emails. Mm-hmm. So, kind of thinking about that strategically. And then just the last thing I would say on that subject is, I don't think you have to be everywhere. I think you should be in terms of platforms where you like to be, where you enjoy, and where your clients are. And if you're not sure where your clients are, you may consider sending them an email. Send an email to your database saying, hey, look, we are working on serving you better with our content. And we're wondering, where are you hanging out online?
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, none of the above. And you'll be surprised. We send this email probably once a year, and people, I'm always surprised. Some people will say, oh, I'm totally not online anymore. Okay, cool. Or, oh my gosh, I love this platform or whatever. So kind of surveying your audience and figuring out where they are. But again, sort of taking that step back and going, okay, let's not figure out a social media strategy. Let's figure out a content strategy, right? And then go from there.
Mm. So I'm thinking if there would be one piece of advice as we're going to wrap this up. First of all, we'll end it with how the listeners can find you, because I think that's important, because you are a super valuable resource to the real estate industry. And anybody's thinking social media, you definitely have to go to katielance.com. Right? Is that it?
Yep.
I got it right.
katielance.com.
Yep. I got it right. She's holding up a little sign for me so I can read it.
We like to make it easy for you. If you just will make it, it'll all come up.
but with my, with my social media, I'm about lifestyle, right? What's the lifestyle of luxury real estate? Products, I love cars, Barrett Jackson's car auction, going on the Queen Mary, visiting exotic cities around Europe, buying nice things. For me, it's a lifestyle. Mike Pappas and I talked about this. Luxury is a lifestyle. So my branding is about my lifestyle, right? And it's not something like, hey, look at me, look what I have. That's not why I do it. I do it because it's fun. Right. I have fun doing it. I think social media is fun. Like, I don't get up in the morning. I get up every morning at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I know I'm nuts. Some people that are listening might get those text messages at 5 a.m. But for me, I like it because for me, social media, like I said, before, it creates something in the community where people can really see your personality. I just had a new website built with Agent Image, and they did an incredible job. And I'm going to be actually on the stage at Luxury Portfolio with John Crabb, who is the founder of Agent Image. And we're going to be on a panel in Las Vegas the end of March, which I'm looking forward to. But for those guys, who are awesome, by the way, it's all about creating the personality. They want to make sure that your visuals, it's your personality. So to me, that's something that, for me, for my social media, it's all about branding the lifestyle of what I sell, which is blockbuster luxury properties. And anybody that's listening, I'm sure, that are selling luxury properties, I think, I've seen some local realtors, putting up videos of them and their team, and they're doing all these little cute dances in blah, blah, blah. For me, I just think that doesn't work. If I'm a $100 million guy and I'm looking to buy a house for 10 million or 2 million or 1 million, I'm not going to turn on the video and see a bunch of people dancing this cute little, Hawaiian dance and then say, I'm going to call them because they know how to do business. So what are your thoughts on all that little cutesy stuff before we wrap it up? Do you think you should be out doing those kind of things, or what do you think? If you're a luxury realtor, right?
Yeah.
If you're a luxury real estate agent in your community, is there a line that you need to draw at certain things, or it's just the sky's the limit?
I think a lot of it comes down to who you are and being really confident in who you are in your own skin. And I was just chatting about this on a webinar I did this morning. I think for, singing and dancing and pointing and sort of the cutesy stuff, it certainly works for some people. There's folks in every level of the industry, including the luxury market, who look at that and go, oh my gosh, that is me, right? Like, finally, I don't have to be like the button up stuffy person. Like, that is me. But that's not for every realtor. I think a lot of it just comes down to like, and you, obviously, Billy, you have a great sense of like who you are, what you are all about, and like you're leaning into that, right? So I don't think you should be anything that you're not, and you also just never know. I find it's really fascinating to see, especially with platforms like TikTok, where you're not necessarily following a lot of people. TikTok is all about an interest. It's more of an interest platform where you tend to see things that you might be interested in, and it's I think changing the way we interact with social media. I think it's a way to get your brand in front of more people. And I think there's an argument both ways of like, well, is it the right audience? I think the jury's still out.
There's no right or wrong answer, right?
There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
And I would say for the luxury market, that's the type of content, honestly, that is getting a ton of traction on TikTok and Instagram Reels, because people want to see what a $10 million house looks like. They want to see what they want to see an absolutely incredible view and this and that, especially with everything that's happened over the last few years and everybody feeling what it felt like to live in their house and, not be out and about as much as possible. I think the idea of home is even more personal for so many people, lately. So yeah, I mean, the short answer to your question, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. You might try it out and see if it's a good fit. And, I always try different things to see, does that work? No, it's all good. You can adjust. Yeah. You never know. Never say never.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say, first, thank you so much for being on the podcast, episode 8. You were awesome, and I will continue to follow you on all of your social media platforms, which I do. And I think that for anybody listening that wants to hear more from Katie, you can go to katielance.com, and she's got the Social Media Academy, which actually Kim, who works with me, recently signed up. So we've been getting a lot of good gems and tidbits from that as well. And with that, like I said, I wanted to thank you, and I can't wait to see you personally soon. Maybe I'll see you at Luxury Portfolio in March. That's going to be fun. And if you want to say anything to the audience, what would you say? We'll wrap it up with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. It's really an honor and a privilege, Billy. I love what you're doing. I'm a fan. I'm excited to see what's next for you, and just appreciate everyone for tuning in today. I guess the last nugget I would tell anyone listening is try not to suffer from analysis paralysis. Just jump in. Done is better than perfect, as I always say. And it's not too late. Start today. Pick 1 or 2 things you've heard from us today and dive right in. So thank you again for having me.
That's awesome. And thank you for everybody listening. And thank you for downloading this. Share it with friends. When you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, share it. Give it a good rating. I look forward to seeing everybody and talking to everybody next week. Have a great, productive week. Do some deals. And I always say, unscripted, coming at you hard. And I love yous all.